In 2024, Adobe stock plummeted by 25.5%, obliterating billions in shareholder value, while tech giants like Apple and Microsoft celebrated massive gains. The creative software empire that seemed untouchable was suddenly hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. For over 3 decades, Adobe had been the undisputed king of creative software, the company that gave us Photoshop, Illustrator, and an entire creative ecosystem that designers couldn't imagine living without. Their dominance appeared unbreakable. But something catastrophic shifted in 2024. Behind the scenes, a perfect storm was brewing that would expose just how fragile Adobe's empire really was. The warning signs were flashing red everywhere. Regulatory battles that cost them billions. Government lawsuits targeting their business practices. A creative community in full-scale revolt. Competitors seizing ground at a terrifying pace. Wall Street had turned against Adobe despite strong financial performance. Even positive earnings reports couldn't stop the bloodbath as investors recognized deeper structural problems. The story of how monopolies collapse and empires disintegrate is unfolding in real time. Adobe's seemingly unshakable dominance is actually built on quicksand, and the cracks are becoming impossible to hide. If you're ready to witness the corporate facade crumble and discover how the creative software revolution is destroying Adobe's stranglehold, smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking business revelations that the tech giants desperately don't want you to know. The collapse had already begun. Most people just don't realize it yet. The crisis traces back to December 2023, when Adobe was forced to abandon the largest acquisition in its history, losing $1 billion in breakup fees and revealing a critical flaw in their strategy. In September 2022, Adobe announced plans to acquire design startup Figma for a staggering $20 billion, nearly double Figma's valuation, and the largest software acquisition in history. The price tag sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. Adobe's desperation was obvious. Figma had emerged as the first genuine existential threat to Adobe's design monopoly. While Adobe clung to outdated desktop software, Figma was winning over an entire generation of designers with its revolutionary cloud-native collaborative approach. Young designers were abandoning Adobe's clunky tools en masse. The acquisition strategy triggered a global regulatory nightmare. The US Department of Justice, UK Competition and Markets Authority, and European Commission all reached the same conclusion. The deal would significantly reduce competition and destroy innovation in the design software market. UK regulators delivered a particularly brutal assessment, stating the acquisition would likely harm innovation for software used by the vast majority of designers globally. Regulators worldwide had decided Adobe was already dangerously dominant and couldn't be allowed to eliminate their biggest threat. On December 18, 2023, both companies announced they were mutually terminating the deal after seeing no clear path to regulatory approval. The word mutually was corporate speak for complete regulatory humiliation. The financial carnage was immediate. Adobe paid Figma exactly $1 billion in breakup fees within just 3 business days, a massive financial loss that provided zero strategic benefit. $1 billion literally vanished into thin air. The failed acquisition exposed that Adobe's only solution to competitive threats was to buy them out rather than innovate. When that strategy collapsed, Adobe faced the nightmare scenario of actually having to compete against Figma and other emerging tools without being able to eliminate them through acquisition. But the regulatory defeat overseas was just the beginning. Adobe was about to face an even more damaging legal battle that would expose how badly they treated their own customers. On June 17, 2024, the Federal Trade Commission filed federal court complaints against Adobe and 2 of its top executives, Maninder Sawhney and David Wadhwani. Adobe had been running what the FTC called a sophisticated subscription trap. Their website automatically pre-selected annual paid monthly plans, locking customers into year-long commitments disguised as flexible monthly billing. Most customers had no idea they were signing annual contracts. When people tried to cancel, they discovered crushing early termination fees worth 50% of their remaining payments, sometimes hundreds or thousands of dollars. Adobe had buried this information in small print and behind optional text boxes and hyperlinks that customers rarely clicked. To make it harder for customers to leave, they forced them into phone calls with aggressive retention specialists and created lengthy retention processes designed to exhaust people into giving up. Hundreds of complaints flooded the Better Business Bureau. People felt deceived and financially cornered. The evidence pointed to systematic deception approved at the highest levels of the company. Adobe claimed the FTC mischaracterizes our business and accused regulators of cherry-picking old employee emails. But they couldn't explain away the customer complaint avalanche or their maze-like cancellation system. The legal troubles were about to multiply, though. In 2024, Adobe ignited the biggest creative industry uprising in years when artists discovered their updated terms of service contained alarming new language about AI and user content. Buried in the fine print, Adobe had quietly granted themselves sweeping rights to access your content through both automated and manual methods, using machine learning to analyze user work. The creative community erupted when they realized what this meant. Filmmakers, artists, and designers interpreted this as Adobe claiming permission to feed their proprietary work into AI training systems. The backlash was immediate and volcanic. High-profile creators began warning that anyone working with confidential files, from Hollywood studios to medical professionals, should immediately abandon Adobe products. Professional consequences became terrifyingly real. Artists under strict NDAs realized that accepting Adobe's new terms could violate their client agreements and expose top-secret creative projects to Adobe's AI systems. Major film studios and advertising agencies faced potential legal nightmares. Social media exploded, with creators sharing screenshots of their Adobe cancellations and encouraging mass exodus from the platform. The hashtag movements gained millions of viewers as designers documented their migration to alternative software. Then Adobe made the crisis even worse by effectively holding users hostage. The company locked people out of their own Creative Cloud accounts unless they accepted the controversial terms, forcing creators to choose between accessing their work and protecting their intellectual property. When the creative revolt reached critical mass, Adobe scrambled into damage control mode. On June 10, 2024, executives rushed to clarify that they couldn't train AI systems on customer work. But the response felt desperate and unconvincing to a community that had already lost trust. The controversy exposed deeper fears about AI companies exploiting creative work without permission or compensation. Artists realized that Adobe could change their policies again at any time, leaving creators perpetually vulnerable to having their work absorbed into AI systems. The trust between Adobe and the creative community had been permanently shattered. With their user base in open revolt and trust evaporated, the next blow to Adobe's dominance came from competitors who recognized this as the perfect moment to strike. Figma, the company Adobe desperately tried to acquire, had emerged from the failed deal stronger and more aggressive than ever, launching a full-scale assault on Adobe's dominance. At Config 2025, they unveiled 4 revolutionary AI-powered tools: Sites, Make, Buzz, and Draw, positioning themselves as the complete design platform Adobe had tried to eliminate. Figma's next move sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. In April 2025, they confidently filed for IPO with the SEC, signaling plans for a public offering that could potentially value them higher than Adobe's original bid. The startup that Adobe couldn't buy was preparing to compete as an independent public company. The IPO filing revealed Figma's aggressive expansion strategy, They had acquired multiple companies, including a $14 million technology purchase and a $35.5 million content management acquisition. Figma was building a comprehensive creative ecosystem to rival Adobe's entire suite. Meanwhile, Canva escalated their enterprise offensive, unveiling sophisticated business tools, specifically designed to lure Adobe's biggest corporate clients. Their strategy focused on offering simpler workflows and transparent pricing that made Adobe's complex subscription model look antiquated. The open source revolution gained serious momentum too, as creators sought Adobe alternatives. GIMP 3.0, announced in mid-2024 after years of development, represented a major upgrade to the free Photoshop alternative. DaVinci Resolve, an Affinity publisher, captured professional users seeking powerful tools without subscription fees. Educational institutions accelerated the shift away from Adobe. Art schools and universities increasingly taught Figma, Canva, and open source alternatives instead of Adobe with their expensive licenses, creating an entire generation of designers who had never depended on Adobe products. Corporate adoption of alternatives reached a tipping point. Companies discovered they could save thousands annually by switching creative teams to competitor tools without sacrificing functionality or productivity. The cost savings were too significant to ignore. The network effects that had locked users into Adobe ecosystem began working in reverse. As more designers migrated to alternative platforms, collaborating with Adobe tools became the exception rather than the industry standard. Things were getting bad for Adobe, but they would get worse. On December 12, 2024, Adobe's carefully constructed narrative finally collapsed. Despite reporting record quarterly revenue of $5.61 billion and fiscal year revenue of $21.51 billion, Wall Street delivered a brutal 14% single-day stock massacre that exposed the depth of Adobe's growth crisis. The trigger was Adobe's 2025 revenue guidance of $23.3 to $23.55 billion, falling short of the expectations of $23.77 billion from Visible Alpha. The miss revealed that Adobe's revenue growth engine was sputtering despite their public optimism. Analysts immediately began downgrading Adobe stock. TD Cowen slashed their rating from buy to hold, while Wells Fargo maintained their buy rating but expressed serious concerns about Adobe's ability to monetize their AI investments. The analyst community was losing faith in Adobe's strategic direction. The stock collapse marked Adobe's deepest single-day drop since September 2022, sending shockwaves through the creative software sector. Investors who had trusted Adobe's consistent growth story suddenly faced the reality that competitive pressures were translating into measurable financial damage. Adobe's AI strategy appeared to be failing spectacularly. Despite massive investments in generative AI tools like Firefly and endless marketing about AI innovation, the technology wasn't converting into the revenue growth that investors demanded. The AI revolution that was supposed to save Adobe was becoming a costly distraction. Currency headwinds and subscription model transitions would slice approximately $200 million from fiscal 2025 revenue, according to Adobe's own projections. The company was fighting multiple financial headwinds simultaneously while competitors gained market share. Stock price forecasts for 2025 ranged wildly from bullish targets above $500 to bearish predictions below $350, revealing massive uncertainty about Adobe's future performance. The investment community was divided about whether Adobe could recover from its competitive and financial challenges. Things do not look good for Adobe, though. The perfect storm of regulatory failures, legal battles, creator backlash, and competitive pressure reveals a company that has fundamentally lost touch with its users and has failed to adapt to industry evolution. The creative software transformation is leaving Adobe behind, turning their once dominant position into a liability. The creative industry is experiencing an irreversible shift toward open, collaborative, and affordable tools that prioritize user experience over corporate profit maximization. Adobe's legacy architecture and subscription-dependent business model make them increasingly obsolete in this new landscape, where creators demand flexibility and ownership. While Adobe spent years focused on acquisition strategies and customer lock-in, competitors built the future of creative software from the ground up. Modern tools like Figma and Canva emerged with cloud-native architectures, intuitive interfaces, and transparent pricing that make Adobe's complex offerings feel antiquated and over-engineered. The generational transition accelerating Adobe's decline cannot be reversed through marketing or feature updates. Younger creators who learn design using modern tools have no nostalgic attachment to Adobe's legacy software and see no compelling reason to pay premium prices for inferior user experiences. As more creators choose alternatives and enterprises seek cost savings, Adobe's network effects are collapsing in real time. Their expensive, complex tools are becoming islands of isolation in an increasingly collected creative ecosystem that values collaboration over individual software prowess. The debt spiral has already begun and will likely accelerate as competitors continue improving, while Adobe struggles with the technical debt of decades-old software architecture and a business model that prioritizes revenue extraction over user satisfaction. What do you think about Adobe? Is it the end for them or just a bump in the road? Let us know in the comments. If this investigation into Adobe's decline shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe to see other exciting business stories. And if you're ready to watch the next story right now, click here to see what happened to this next business. I think you'll find it intriguing to say the least.